Can you hear me? It's pretty good.
Yep. Okay, thank you all for your patience. That was when I was yelling before. We were trying to reconfigure the AV so that most people could actually see. If once we have this presentation later on, you need to move your chairs up. Feel free to do so to be able to read it. So we'll call the meeting to order. Clerk McMullen, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Beshear.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown. Present. Councilmember Murdoch. Present. Councilmember Richardson. Present. Councilmember Robb.
Present.
Councilmember Vogt. And Mayor Edmonds.
Present.
We have a quorum with all present.
Please stand as you're able to face the flag, which is this little guy right here, for a moment of silence, followed by our Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Justice for all! Okay, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview and then we'll move on to the agenda of approval. Thank you so much for so many of you being with us. We appreciate you being here. I'm going to tell you a little of how this is going to run. There were agendas back there, we might have run out of them, so here's how it works. We'll do our agenda approval. We will have a first chance for audience participation. We'll have a first chance for audience participation. We will then have the public hearing about the International Village proposal. So we then have a whole other agenda after that. Hope you'll stay with us till at least midnight because we have many other items on our agenda later in the meeting. But in terms of audience participation opportunities, there are always in every meeting two opportunities, one near the beginning and one near the end for audience participation about any item. We have two sign-up sheets back there, and don't worry, we will get through everyone as well as anyone who didn't sign up in advance. We will ask for folks from the audience who want to speak. If you're here to speak about the public hearing on the International Village project, we presume you will want to speak during that public hearing. You'd have 3 minutes during that public hearing. We'll go through the list. We'll ask for others from the audience. If you want to also speak during our other audience participation, you are welcome and open to do so, either of those or both of those other chance of audience participation. Any of those things, the public hearing or the audience participation, 3 minutes is how much time that you get, and I will describe those rules before we go into them. Apologies if there was any confusion. We had two sign-up sheets just since we knew probably a lot of people would be here for that specific public hearing. That's kind of how we will run this evening, so I will move forward with a motion to approve the agenda. So moved by Mayor Pro Tem Brown, second by Councilperson Richardson. Are there any updates or edits proposed to the agenda? Councilperson Richardson, if you press the button, I think it's red.
I wasn't speaking, so I turned it up.
Okay, thank you. Everyone got that? We press it for when it's red, that's when we can talk. Are there any updates or changes to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, all in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. By way of introductions, I'll introduce the staff who are here with us this evening. Darwin McClary, our city manager. Francis McMullen, our city clerk. John Barr and Dan Duchesne, representing as our city attorneys. Beth Ernett, our director of community and economic development. Joe Myers, our DDA director and community development manager. And Cindy Kochanek, our historic district staff person. Preservation plan. Sorry, I don't know that title. And thank you all to those, or the rest of you who are here with us this evening. So we will actually get right at it for our first opportunity for audience participation. Clerk McMullen, can you grab the sign-up list as it is behind? So as she does that, I'll describe audience participation. Audience participation is a chance for members of the audience to address us about any items that they wish. We'll start with those names on the sheet in the order that they have signed in. Apologies if I can't read your handwriting or have mispronounced your name. I will do my best. If I call your name and you don't choose to speak at this time, so say you signed up there but would rather have your comments during the public hearing, just say pass and that's fine. We will, after we get through everyone on the sheet, I will ask for members of the audience who would like to participate and just raise your hand. I'll call on you. When you come up to speak, you'll come to this podium and you will state your name and address for the record. After that, your 3 minutes will start. The clerk has a timer and you'll hear a beep when that is done and your comments will be over and we will move on to the next person, especially because there are many people here who I think have interest in speaking this evening. Audience participation is not a Q&A or a back and forth with city council or staff. It is a chance for you to speak to us. It is not a call and response format. We will also expect, as always, people to be respectful and the audience to be respectful of those who are speaking. While you may feel compelled to do a lot of clapping, we'd like to be able to move through audience participation and our public hearing and have the most people with a chance to speak before way late at night. So I'd ask you to please hold your applause. I do want to note part of the order of operations. Thank you. Order of operations during the International Village part of the agenda. So when we get to that, after this chance for audience participation, we will first have a presentation by our staff and the folks from International Village. And so you will get first to sort of learn. There may be some quick clarifying questions from council during that time, but mostly we will just be presented to. So that will be our chance to really learn a lot more details about the project. After that is when the public hearing is. So if you come up at that public hearing, make your comments, ask questions, those questions won't be responded right away, but at the close of the public hearing is when council will ask questions, deliberate, redirect questions we've heard from the audience, etc. But the folks from International Village are not going back and forth with the audience during that time. So just want to clarify how that works and those expectations. So I will start with audience participation because we have so many people here and interested. I will give you a who's on deck so you can get ready to come up when you're ready to speak. So first up we have Jerry Dodge, and next up we've got Karen Gaines, and then Robert Barnes. Jerry Dodge, starting us off again. Welcome, nice to see you again.
Thank you. Before I start, I want to say I'm going to be meeting to the end list that is no disrespect to council or anyone here, but grandchildren and gender codes and...
Okay, can you try to pull the mic down and let's get a test on it to make sure it works? Will you say test for us?
Test.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I would like this community, all of this community, to proudly own this community. I would like this community, all of this community, to proudly have access to this community's resources. I do not necessarily want this political body to vote no on the International Village. After ensuring that this is a sound agreement with regards to the business practices of these investors, I want council and the language of the agreement to vow to come up with solutions that are dedicated to helping all of the people of this community, not just to survive, but to thrive. I am not requesting that this council try to make these purchasers responsible for the well-being of this community. This is all of our jobs. That's all of us. Everyone in this room and everyone who has a stake in this community by virtue of residency and or employment and or personal or monetary interests. I want the City Council to add caveats to this agreement that their own goal is to ensure that this community is owned by and benefits every single one of us. I want them to require of themselves the use of their prodigious problem-solving skills and dedication to this community to help create new and inclusive solutions to include exclusionary investment practices. I see this investment opportunity, once thoroughly vetted, as a means of helping this community climb out of a black hole of well-intentioned original debt. But I also see it as a very possible road to selling off the lives of people who have been and are a proud part of this community. I am asking that in the language of this agreement, we not demand more from the investors. For all of our benefits, we as a community need to gain some fiscal security. I am asking that in the language of this agreement or any agreement, we demand more of ourselves. That we do not allow this to become a rampant sell-off of community resources for those wishing to capitalize on a depressed economy, to investors whose aims have a high potential to displace and marginalize the population as it stands today. This community as it stands today is a community I love, all of it and its cultural and economic diversity. I happen to think that economic diversity
Thank you.
is positive.
Thank you.
Well said.
Karan Gaines. And next up is Robert Barnes, after that Quinn Phillips. So Karan first and then Robert Barnes after him.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karan Gaines. I stay at 833 Armstrong. Been living here my whole life, 30 years. I simply wanted to say today, I believe yesterday, we got across to the council on things that people felt that was real personal, which is real serious. I just want to say to the council that I appreciate the hard work you guys are putting in. I don't feel a lot of people are recognizing this thing has been going on for 20 years. Lois, Pete Murdoch have been on the council for years, so they've been fighting for this thing for a long time. Nicole Brown and Amanda, this is their first term, so this is not easy for nobody. I still have my views, I still say no. I have my reasons for saying no, but I feel it still should be a level of respect to our council and acknowledge that they are working hard. This is not easy for nobody, for the people or the council, and I think we should be working more together than bashing and separating right now. So I just wanted to say to the council, thank you for working so hard. It's not easy. It's not easy for the people either. As a Human Relations Commissioner, we're going to do a lot better on reaching the people and getting them information a lot sooner. And thank you, and I hope things go in my favor still. Like I said, I still say no. But in life, you can disagree with things and still meet at a common ground without disrespect. And that's all I want to say today. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Barnes, next on deck after Robert Barnes is Quinn Phillips.
Hello, my name is Robert Barnes, and I'm at 520 West Cross Street here in the city of Ypsilanti. I would like to say that I am in support of the International Village. It's been a long way with, coming with the Water Street project. We now have an opportunity to kind of bail it out. This council has kind of been stuck with this process, since the onset over 15 years ago. This particular investment into our community says that it's going to have a possibility of being an assessed value of $150 million, which would be a taxable value of the same. This community is on its general fund alone could actually bring in $1.4 million annually just off this particular piece of real estate. Also towards our Ypsilanti public schools, would we have an influx of $2.7 million. That would be a huge help for our public schools that's in need of some financial stability. Also, our AATA would actually increase with a $250,000 increase to their annual revenue just from this particular one project. I was here last night to hear a lot of dissent and just anger towards the affordable housing situation. But I would like to thank this council, and I didn't hear anyone do that, is that we've had this new Park Ridge building going up that's coming to fruition with 86 new units for the affordable housing. I didn't hear anyone thank for that, so I would like to thank you. The other thing that has also happened here is, the Hamilton Crossing, 144 units that has come to help the affordable housing. We've also had the Sauk Trail Apartments. I've been here for more than 30 years. It's the nicest it's ever looked, and it has gone through a huge renovation. So that's been a huge help. We've also had something called the Cross Street Village up on Cross Street for over 100 units. That has been a tremendous help. So I would like you to thank you for that stuff that maybe not everyone else has said, but that has been a tremendous help to this community. To bring us to go forward, we do need this influx of tax revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Quinn Phillips and then Jessica Milne, you're next up after that.
I'm Quinn Phillips. I live at 414 Emmett Street. Some of the supporters of International Village who spoke last night seem to have a willfully ignorant understanding of gentrification. It is not about who is displaced or not displaced by the physical construction of the development, but the potential for rents nearby to rise, which would directly contribute to displacement. The fact that the construction of affordable housing at Water Street is unlikely due to state regulations does not mean that we can't negotiate a deal to help mitigate the unintended consequences of luxury developments on our current rental market. Related to the concerns of xenophobic rhetoric being expressed, there are probably some citizens who oppose International Village who have anti-immigrant and racist views. I reject those views wholeheartedly, and if International Village is built, I will do everything I can to make the residents feel welcome and safe in our community. However, I want to point out that the presenters who laid out their opposition at the beginning of last night's meeting were Black or Asian American. The vast majority of people of color and immigrants who spoke last night were in opposition to International Village. I personally know many of the citizens who expressed their concerns. Some of the most vocal opponents are also active in local immigrant rights organizations and anti-racist activism. Furthermore, when you see folks with signs that say, "Keep Ypsi Black," that is a response to Black residents being historically pushed out and ignored by the city. It is a response to efforts to rebrand our city as diverse and tolerant without actually addressing our history of redlining, disenfranchisement, and the continuing devaluation of voices of people of color in the decision-making process. There are histories of racial tension between Black and Asian communities, just as there are between Black and white communities. What I saw last night was people of different races and ethnicities expressing concern that the development process is moving too quickly. Ypsi has a strong Black heritage, and wanting to preserve that is not itself racist or xenophobic. It's not Chinese immigrants who could be a threat to Ypsi culture. It is the wealth that people who could afford to live at International Village would bring. There seems to be this attitude towards courting wealthy residents to move to Ypsi that sounds like the old adage, a rising tide lifts all boats. Those residents who can't afford a boat will be left to sink or swim when the tide of wealth rolls in. I urge City Council to vote no on this purchase agreement and to please do more in the future to get the word out about developments which could have this large of an impact on our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Milne is next, and on deck is Veronica Urban. After Veronica will be Nathaniel Romero.
With Quinn before me and Nathaniel after me, I don't know how I'm about to do right now, so bear with me. Jessica Milne, 211 North Washington. First of all, I want to remind everyone that we are all on stolen indigenous land before I begin speaking tonight. So last night a lot of folks were talking about that it's not gentrification. A lot of white folks were talking about it's not gentrification because it's the creation of a new building. It's not like someone directly being pushed out of the current building that they live in. Adhering to this really specific definition of gentrification ignores other key indicators of gentrification that happen in communities. So it's a very complex, vicious process that operates on multiple levels. And it's often hidden from the people who can afford to pay the rent and from homeowners. It's apparent in the faces that we'll see in town once this starts happening, in their interests and what the types of businesses they like to frequent, their consumption. Gentrification is a recognizable pattern. It's not just happening, I mean, it can happen in many different forms, right? So in Ypsi, it doesn't have to be this new building. An indicator of gentrification can be like a bougie sandwich and juice store, R.I.P. Babo. In Boyle Heights, it can be a coffee shop. Here in Ann Arbor, West Side was rebranded to Water Hill. The same thing happened in New York. They're trying to call South Harlem Soha. The same thing happening in Bushwick. with majority black people being displaced from their homes. My partner just moved here to be with me from the north side of Staten Island, majority black community. They're building the world's largest Ferris wheel and tons of strip malls and things that will displace black residents. We have seen this pattern before. This is not something like super mysterious to us. It's hidden from all of y'all who can afford to pay your mortgage and rent. Don't dismiss our fears because we've seen this before. People who are not at risk of displacement don't get to decide what gentrification is and how it operates. And then my other comment about the racism thing, there was a lot of arguments that were racist, like that we are racist and xenophobic for not supporting the Chinese development. If you think this, please consider the intersections between class and race. Rich folks building this village is gentrification that will disproportionately affect black folks. As Shane said last night, you can't be diverse if you're anti-black.
Thank you. Next up we have Veronica Urban. On deck is Nathaniel Romero and then Alice Elliott. Good evening.
Hey, how are you? Veronica Urban, 1564 Village Lane, Apartment 101. I'm gonna give you guys a break. I'm not talking about the International Village.
Okay.
But I am gonna talk about what I talked about at the last council meeting when I stood up and talked to you about Hawkins Street. Nothing has been done. You guys told me you would send the code advisor out there and check it out. Nobody's been there. The grass is still not cut. The place still looks like a dump. Cars are still parked on the side with no up-to-date tags on it. And I also want to know, that's not the street that I grew up on my entire life. Why is there not a speed limit sign from Michigan Ave to Harriet? Not one. No wonder people drive 45. They think that's what the speed limit is. There's a lot of kids on that street now and a lot of older people. Someone's going to get hurt. If you don't do something about that, someone's going to get hurt. I can barely cross the street when they drag racing. But that corner at 422 Hawkins, somebody needs to do something about that. I still want to know if it's okay for Bill in a residential neighborhood to just slap the Bill sign up on the house. People that have businesses, you can't put a sign out there and say, come get your hair done, but they can do that. I think that's unfair. And y'all can go back to the International Village. Thanks.
Thank you. Will you leave your contact info with the city manager here so he can follow up with you on that address and that question? Thank you. So next up we have Nathaniel Romero on deck, Alice Elliott, and then Katie Clark.
Hey y'all, I'm Nathaniel Romero, 413 West Cross. Last night felt good. There was a lot of love in the room, a lot of good vibes. And I know that for a number of council members, it did not feel good. I'm feeling a lot of heavy feelings right now. I don't feel the vibe in this room right now that I felt yesterday. And I think the reason why is that we're about to witness something that could be potentially violent happening. And I understand that that word violent may seem exaggerated or hysterical or something like that. But one thing that I noticed yesterday, and I will repeat this again, if you look at the demographic of the people who express support for International Village, white, middle class homeowners. If you look at the makeup of this council, homeowners.
Are you one?
No.
Right.
That's right. And I want to think about the people who spoke up yesterday against International Village. We saw low-income people. We saw renters. We saw people of color. Ypsilanti is nearly 30% black Amber had a bunch of statistics. We have a median income of what, like 30-something thousand? I think it's violent to bring in people who can afford EB-5 visas into a community that is working class, into a community that is black. When we say keep Ypsi black, we mean to preserve the community that is here. It isn't unwelcoming to resist people coming into your community who have more power and more wealth than you do, who have the capacity to radically reshape your community so that it is no longer the beautiful safe haven that you have called home. And one thing about being poor, and one thing about being a person of color, is that you do not always like to be around people who are more privileged than you, who might not have the empathy for you. And what I have noticed is that people who live in certain neighborhoods, particularly the wider neighborhoods, particularly the more affluent, single family home neighborhoods, I'm just not seeing that empathy. And I'm not seeing that empathy from council.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow.
You are so welcome.
Elliott is next. Then Katie Clark. So Alice Elliott is next. On deck we have Katie Clark and then Brian Foley. Good evening.
My name is Alice Elliott. I live at 502 Pearl Street, number 2. I'm going to start by amplifying what others, especially Nathaniel, just said. I've lived in Ann Arbor my whole life, which is part of the reason I'm here tonight, because I'm not going to move into a new place, to a new community, without getting involved in that community and making sure that I know what I'm doing and making sure that I know what's going on. I've seen what happens when these developments come. I've seen the rising rents. There was maybe 1-2 skyscrapers when I was a kid growing up in Ann Arbor. I've seen the few black residents that were there be displaced. I've seen them spill over into Ypsi. And now the same thing is happening here. And I wanted to speak today, if only because maybe as a more middle-class white woman, maybe y'all will listen to me when I tell you to listen to them. The ones who will be displaced, the ones that this violence will be done onto. And therefore I urge the council to vote no on this development, because I think it's unbelievable that people are going to continue to be displaced and that this violence is going to continue to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up we have Katie Clark. On deck is Brian Foley and then Van Loggins.
Hi everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Katie Clark. I live at 430 South Adams Street. I don't have too much to say. I just want to remind council that yesterday at the meeting, the vast majority of people who came to speak were opposed to the development in some capacity. The biggest sentiment that I heard expressed was that this process needs to slow down, and that the way that council can demonstrate to us that that's happening is by voting no today and giving us some more time to figure this out. So I'm really hoping that everyone will vote no. I sincerely will find it outrageous if this gets passed after what we heard yesterday from people. And then I also just want to add that if you're a slumlord in the audience, you really have no business coming up here to talk about affordable housing without thinking about your own constituency.
Next we have, I don't know if Ryan Foley in, but comments must be respectful. Ryan Foley, you're next. Then we have Van Loggins on deck and Bob Gillette. Mr. Foley.
Good evening, Council. Brian Foley, 425 Ainsworth Circle, lifelong born Ypsilanti resident. You know, it's one thing I noticed that most of the people that are making these major decisions in Ypsilanti are not indigenous Ypsilantians.
Yeah.
And what we're doing right now is compromising our heritage for capital. We're actually being so. And I believe the gentleman who spoke earlier, his name was Nathaniel Elliott. Thank you. You expressed my sentiments exactly. Living on 425 Ainsworth Circle, I've lived there all my life. The police did not patrol my neighborhood because they did not have to. It wasn't necessary. But now the police are in my neighborhood at least once a week now, and particularly on Friday. We have a band that has been performing in a garage for over close to 50 years. But now all of a sudden we had white people moving to our neighborhood, and now the police have to come and tell us to turn our music down. We live a way that we choose to live, which is best for our culture. But now that we have a few white people moving to our neighborhood, we have to change everything that we do. Our whole lifestyle is being disrupted. Nicole Brown, I hope that when you do go to China, because I heard some people talking about xenophobia, but we're talking about a cultural clash. When you go over there, please examine that culture. Because we see the way that Africans are being treated in China and the way that Africans are being treated in Africa by Chinese.
The Caribbean.
Okay, so last night I was trying to share some statistics, right? Gentrification is very real. Right? As people are being displaced, and I heard somebody say earlier about the potential for violence. As people being displaced, they aren't going to have anywhere to go. If you go downtown Ypsilanti right now, you will see a whole bunch of people just wandering around with nowhere to go. We have a very good police force. I know the police chief personally, I know the command officer personally on a first name basis. Pretty soon, as these people begin to be displaced, they're going to have no place to go. And you know where they're going to be winding up walking around? In your neighborhood. You're going to wonder where all these people came from. Then you're going to get upset, get mad, you're going to call the police. And then because you have a lot of police trying to displace who are not indigenous to Ypsilanti and that's going on, then you got the potential for a further situation. I implore the city of Ypsilanti to slow down. Take a look at this thing. I'm not anti-international village, but we need to take a look and slow down. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Jan Lyons. And then on deck is Bob Gillette, and then Shane McFarland. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam President. My name is Van Locums. I reside at 115 Hawkins Street. And I'd like to slightly segue the conversation, if I may. I'd like to talk about the proposed senior development on the south side of Ypsilanti. Have a lot of mixed feelings about that. Since I'm a senior myself, I'm for senior housing, but I'm not for senior housing in terms of when it so negatively marginalizes and negatively, as I see, it's going to impact residents on the south side of Ypsilanti. It's been too long that we've been marginalized and compromised in our endeavors just to live a productive life. I'm quite sure if you check the history books, we were the last ones in the city to get our streets paved. Our ward, which was Ward 1, was gerrymandered, and we lost a lot of our voting prowess that we had. But as I see this particular project, and I don't know how many people know the dynamics about this project, because I'm just finding out about it myself. I have questions more than statements and answers. I'm wondering what we're giving up in terms of a city. Are we giving up abatements for this proposed project? I know if it comes to fruition, we're giving up some green space. The air quality is going to be drastically changed. With that increased traffic, we already have elderly living on the street and kids, you know. We don't have speed bumps. Ms. Urban talked about the lack of even speed signs. So we want to put up a building that's going to house 64 apartments, increase traffic, compromise air quality, and we don't even have speed bumps on the city. So once again, I just think we're being compromised. I'm to understand there's a zoning question that we're zoned for single-family residence, and we want to put up a 4-story monstrosity on my corner right across the street from me? No. No. I just think in this process there hasn't been enough transparency. And that's one of the major issues that I take issue with, because it seems like we're moving real fast on these particular items. course, I don't need to parrot the gentrification elements of it because I think that's been well articulated already. You know, it's just like any other thing. You get a foothold in the community and it will change. I just came back from Harlem. I'm in the middle of Harlem, 130th and Lenox. And I'm here to complaints there, and I see who's living there. I guess that's my time, but hopefully I can follow up at some point.
Thank you. Just as a point of information, a reference to the project that was just being spoken about, that's an affordable senior housing development proposed on West Michigan Avenue that has not come before council, is going before the Planning Commission tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So if you have interest there, that is the next step that is. So Bob Gillette, you are next. On deck is Shane McParland and then Philip Chang.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Bob Gillette. I'm here to speak about 15 South Washington. This is another 3-minute break from International Village. This project is on the agenda later this evening. The proposal is for easements on the north and east side of the building. I'm the Executive Director of Legal Services of South Central Michigan, which provides free legal services to low-income people in civil cases. The 15 South Washington building has been vacant since 1992. We currently have it under contract and hope to close in the next few weeks. Our plans for the building are to move our legal aid offices there. There'll be some additional space that we hope to rent there, and we have some meeting space on the first floor that we think will be public meeting space. We expect to bring about 40 staff people to downtown Ypsi as part of our redevelopment of the building. We have a number of staff who live in the city. They're very excited about moving their work close to their home. The request tonight is a request for easements. The building is built lot line to lot line, and so technically when we walk out of the east door, we're trespassing on city property. Staff supports the easement request that we've made. I just wanted to say thank you to staff who've been very accessible and helpful to us. That as an organization and on behalf of our staff, we're excited about this project and the move. And I'm happy to answer any questions either tonight or between council meetings. This is an information item, not an action item tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Shane McParland. Good evening.
Hello, Shane McParland, 12 North Wallace Boulevard. I'm here to express my opposition to the International Village project. Sorry, guys. I'm here primarily in solidarity with my fellow my renting friends. I am a homeowner in Ward 2. I do want to encourage my fellow homeowners and my fellow liberals and progressives to consider this with great skepticism. Primarily, a couple things. One is the money. Where's the money coming from? We all know that we've been in some hard times recently, but just because we are experiencing hard times doesn't mean that we should exploit or take advantage of a program that exploits others in going through their hard times. And the EB-5 visa program is a program that exists that gives a fast pass to rich investors from other countries, while simultaneously ICE in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti is rounding people up. They're harassing people in their workplace, and meanwhile we're going to hand over a green card to a rich person just because we want that money. So I think that we don't really need it. If we really look at the power dynamics, we passed the millage funding proposal, which is giving us a better negotiation perspective in that we're not rushed to have to find a funding mechanism for Water Street. Now, to develop it is one thing, but at least, it's not going to ruin the city if we don't do anything with it right now. We wait for the right thing to come along, or we decide to do something with that property on our own. A project that does not give up power to any rich investor and actually gives us the ability to control it and make sure that everyone's interests are being met. And by default, if you give up that power to an investing group, a developer, no matter what, how many things you try to put in place to prevent them from, managing their interests, which is just to make a bunch of money, you can only do so much. So I think we should vote no, and I think that we should look at alternatives. And I know some people are working on alternatives right now. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
On deck after Philip is Amber Fellows, and then Amory Zal Porto. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Philip Chang, and I'm on 863 Hill Street. I am quite new to Ypsilanti, and also quite new to this issue, so I won't say too much, but I just wanted to speak up because looking around the room, I don't see a lot of Asian or Asian American faces. I am a homeowner in Ypsilanti, and I just want to echo the sentiment of diversity and how much it's valued in Ypsilanti, and that's one of the reasons why I'm falling more and more in love with the city of Ypsilanti as I continue to stay here, and I hope that City Council will continue to honor that tradition and those values moving forward, however way things turn out.
Thank you. Amber Fellows, after that, Amory, and then Isaac Levine. Can you state your name and address for the record?
Amber Fellows, 300 Jarvis Street. I'm just going to mention real quick that I make above the median income for Ypsilanti, and I cannot afford to buy a home here now. So, I met with State Rep Ronnie Peterson last night. It was great. And he told me that yesterday's event was the largest city-attended event he's witnessed in 20 years. The city council meeting he referenced from 20 years ago was about including sexual orientation as a protected class in Ypsilanti's non-discrimination ordinance. That issue 20 years ago was also heated, contentious, and with a lot of hard work and dedication, Ypsilantians were able to push the city to include this protected class in the non-discrimination ordinance. 20 years later, no one today would argue the decision to protect residents based on their sexual orientation was a bad one. That piece of history makes us who we are today. The Human Relations Commission that I proudly serve on was created in this era to review the non-discrimination ordinance and see it and as much as we can as a city institution, we would advocate for the equality of all residents in Ypsi. I see parallels from 20 years ago and today, and our non-discrimination ordinance already includes a protection on the basis of class. Do you want to be on the right side of history? In 20 years from now, do you want to say that you ignored the pain and outrage of the residents at the time in favor for a development deal? When historians write about this time, I want them to say that Ypsi fought back, that Ypsi tried something new, and it started with the stopping of the International Village Purchase Agreement. To the issue of xenophobia, I reject xenophobia. I'm a first-generation Japanese-American immigrant. I'm obviously not against immigrants or for protectionism or isolationism. I'm also not against development, as populations do shift over time. I'm against using someone's minority status as boosterism for private developments and luxury housing. The flattening of race as a singular category for all checkboxes of diversity, that ignores anti-blackness within non-black communities of color, that ignores the complexities of how race and class intersect with mobility, income, which have disproportionate effects on black and brown communities. Black Ypsilanti is Ypsilanti. Talking about International Village as adding to Ypsilanti's strength as a diverse city is utter gaslighting. This narrow conception of race and diversity, serves only one purpose: to justify the total economic apartheid and colonization that will take place following the completion of International Village. Wealthy students from another country doesn't add to our strength as a diverse city. It destroys opportunities for prosperity for much of our current residents, who are many of us Black, brown, Native, and immigrant.
Thank you. And Riza Rajabi after that. Good evening. Can you say your name and address for the record?
My name is Amory Jao Corvo. I live at 1309 Arella Boulevard. I spoke last night as well, but I felt the need to get back up here and talk a little bit about my thoughts as an actual Chinese local on the International Village proposal. I'm opposed to the International Village, and I'm here to dispel some myths and quell some concerns white people might have about anti-Chinese racism. So, I'm Chinese American. I come from an immigrant family. I spoke Mandarin at home growing up, and for the last 2 years, I've been working at a family-owned Chinese restaurant where we also speak Mandarin to each other. Chinese American life has always been my reality, and as such, I have a very deep understanding, pride, and love for it. Growing up as an ethnically Chinese person, I've experienced racism in the form of taunts, remarks, microaggressions, the works. But I have never experienced systematic, institutionalized, government-endorsed oppression which would keep me from mobility and agency due to my race. That's the difference between anti-Chinese racism and anti-Black racism. If you make racist remarks about Chinese people, to me, in my eyes, you suck, but you aren't posing a threat to my existence. Understand that distinction. That's why, even if I'm inadvertently maybe standing with racists who just don't want Chinese neighbors, I'm still against the International Village proposal. Not because I'm complacent to anti-Chinese racism, but because I understand that working class and tangentially Black, Latinx, and houseless issues take priority, being more dire concerns. And because being anti-International Village and anti-immigrant are totally mutually exclusive stances. Racial justice warrants solidarity with those facing more urgent challenges than me. I can't speak for the entire Chinese American community, obviously, but I will say that in all my talks with relatives, neighbors, friends, and coworkers, I have never heard of anti-Chinese racism being a serious concern to anyone in terms of safety or agency over our lives. In my opinion, it's a pretty broadly understood fact that we're okay in that sense. Additionally, yeah, as people have said before, it's fully possible for Chinese people to be racist against Black people. And in fact, some of the most blatant anti-Black racism I've seen in my life has come from Chinese people. And if white folks in Ipsy are concerned about not having enough Asian neighbors, trust me, we're abundant and we're around if you look for us. So maybe be more concerned about having enough Latinx neighbors since you're so concerned about diversity, and standing up for them since they're being deported at an alarming rate right now. Gentrification, eviction, and displacement are violent. City Council will be engaging in classist and racist violence should they go through with this development. The Chinese investors will be engaging in classist and racist violence should they go through with this. And they aren't exempt from that just because they're not white. The "oh, but anti-Chinese racism" card, only whipped out by white people as far as I've seen, is a flimsy excuse to deflect criticism related to profit-driven interests. I am insulted that you would pretend to stand up for me to trample on other more vulnerable people. If you get paranoid when Black teenagers come within 10 feet of you, don't tell me about that you care about diversity. So, this Chinese American is asking that every white person here close that line of argument because it's not fooling anyone. And again, City Council, please vote no.
I'm going to pass till the next period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next up is Riza Rajabi. Reza, sorry, apologies. And after that on deck is Julia Baiha and then Kyle Hunter. Baiha.
Hi, my name is Reza Rajabi, and I'm a Middle Eastern American. I came to the US 40 years ago, and I love the United States because it gives people the opportunity to speak their mind. Several months ago, I came here to the council meeting, and I was outraged at the fact that they had shut off the water to my property. They wanted $1,000 in bond. Didn't have the money. So, did I yell? Yes, I did. Did I shout loudly? Yes, I did. Did I threaten anybody? No, I didn't. Did I use profanity? No, I didn't. You know what they did? They passed a resolution to stop me from coming into the city hall. Do you think that is fair?
No.
I think the only reason they did it is because of my accent. I have tried so hard to be just like an American. I do my volunteer work when I have to, or when I want to, when I have the time. I take care of my community when I see that it is needed to be done. I have done everything in my power to assimilate, and I've done everything in my power to be accepted as a citizen of this great United States of America. My question to the council members is, why did you pass a resolution to stop me from coming into the city hall? Why did you do that? I have to conduct my business as a resident of this city, and I have to be in communication with the city hall. I think what you did was wrong. In my neighborhood, I see signs saying that, foreigners are welcome here. There is no place for heat. African American lives matters. These are all hogwash.
Yes.
All hogwash.
Yes.
In reality, you don't care about foreigners. You don't. I have paid my taxes. I have voted whenever I was supposed to. I have raised a family, good kids. I have worked day and night to pay my bills. Why did you do that to me? Why did you do that to me? That was not fair. Do you agree?
Yes.
Of course I agree.
I'm your neighbor. I accept you. I accept you. You're welcome here. We want you here. You're welcome here, Pickup. What we do is not it. What we welcome you as is what it matters.
The person on the floor.
It's what matters.
I guess I'm finished. Thank you very much for listening.
Mr. Rajabi, I'm unaware of anything that was passed through our city council, but we will ask our city manager to clarify if there's something that did not come through city council that we are not aware of, following this meeting. But I'm not aware of any resolution coming before this body regarding you, Ed. And then next up is Kyle Hunter, and then Kaiser Sose.
I'm the person with the name nobody can ever say right. My name is Julia Behe.
Hey, I'm gonna get it.
I live at 401 West Michigan Avenue, Town Center Place. I tried to get several of my building mates to come, but most of them are elderly and disabled. So no matter what, you're not going to hear from them much. And when I hear people list areas of marginalization, we're rarely thought of, and I'm used to that because of some of the jobs I held growing up that were never ever thanked in unprofessional developed days. I grew up in Ann Arbor, and I watched my whole life. When people can't afford their hometown of Ann Arbor, they move to Ypsi. Where do people from Ypsi move when they can't afford Ypsi? Just want people to think about it. Not that I don't know. I know people in every single community, every single demographic. I'd like to direct your eyes to the chart on this page that was given out, the handout. The lowest income it states is, for its comparisons, is $18,600 a year. I assure you that's not covering the real income reality of marginalized citizens of any column. Usually they would be making somewhere between 50 and 60%, 66% of that, 1/2 to 2/3. Additionally, if we are going to have something called the International Village, and I really want people to stop calling it Chinese Village, we need to call things what they are. It's called International Village, and remove that tendency if we want to talk about xenophobia. I don't feel like we should have them here if they're not going to require that a certain agreed upon and significant percentage of the workers that will be hired are from Ypsilanti and from the marginalized communities and from the heritage communities of Ypsilanti. I also feel that you should not have agreements with any corporation that would come in here and not provide affordable housing, given we have such an affordable housing issue. We are more avant-garde on this issue than Ann Arbor. It's clear. But let's not cave now in order to try and be besties with Ann Arbor. I'd like to direct anybody who's social media active to read what Grace Yoder wrote last night. Look on the page for Grace Yoder, Graceyoder. I read many today. I basically couldn't handle the rest of my schedule. I left the dishes undone. I did not do laundry or pick up my house today. I had to focus and concentrate on just ruminating on what happened here last night. I really want people to know that if we do this kind of thing in the future, it has to include everyone.
Guten Tag. My name is Kyle Hunter. I stay at 109 Fair Street, Ypsilanti, Michigan, 48197. I'm not going to take up too much time because a lot of views have already been articulated that I share, specifically opposition to the purchase agreement today because we have until December to really make the decision. And from the looks of things, there's not a lot of agreement on what is the best course of action to take with the language in the agreement. I'm also going to read Grace Yoder's comment from Facebook, since she couldn't be here today to do that. One thing I'd like to air out is the idea that the road to justice and health in our communities will not make economic sense. I think the idea that our economy is fueled by a death urge is fairly evident at this stage of the game. So we have to reconcile ourselves to this, and do things that don't make that kind of sense anymore. What we need to be talking about and brainstorming as a community is how we get all our needs met when we are up against such a beast. This means that the most vulnerable in our communities need to be absolutely at the center of all economic discussions. They are the ones who are the true measure of our community's health. We have to stop worshiping the God of progress to stop sacrificing the vulnerable among us. I don't believe it works any other way, and our compromises need to honestly acknowledge the damage they will cause. I oppose International Village because it follows a well-tested pattern of gentrification and will push people I love out of their home. My connection to this place is very important to me, and my stability here is fairly recent and largely a stroke of luck due to people with more money, power, and resources than we had helping us along. I can show my gratitude by remembering that I didn't earn any of it and that no one has stability without the support of their community. This is primary in these discussions. And then she quotes Dorothy Day. As we come to know the seriousness of the situation, the war, the racism, the poverty in our world, we come to realize that things will not be changed simply by words or demonstrations. Rather, it's a question of living one's life in a drastically different way. I implore City Council and Mayor to vote no on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyle, from Technical Assistance.
Hi, I'm Kaiser Soze. I live at 423 Emmett Street. I'm kind of choked up. I'm extremely moved. I feel like I'm watching a documentary of one of those amazing things that happens in a town that you know is never really going to happen because, you know, the good guys never win. Man, it's happening for real. I keep pinching myself. This is incredible. I can't believe the turnout. Thank you, Ypsilanti. I want to say that I can't imagine after 2 nights of all of us, you know, expressing our concerns and how many people didn't even know about it. I still am telling people, I told the people at Fortney Eye Care today about it. They didn't even know it. It's going in across the street from them. So after all of this, I can't imagine that you won't postpone it. Because if you do anything other than that, I mean, you worked for us. We elected you. You would be overstepping your bounds as a city servant to represent the people. So I can't imagine you would not postpone it. We have to talk about this more. It's I mean, look, we've got a lot of people, and I want to say, everyone keeps saying, oh, Hamilton Crossing is affordable. Well, you know, there's a 6-month waiting list to get in. So if you can get into one of their nice $500 one-bedroom apartments, but you gotta pay $35 to get on the waiting list to see if you're even approved for it. And most people who need housing need it now, not in 6 months. And I really think we have to think about putting all the low-income people in one place. That's like taking everyone that's sick and putting them in one place. If we spread everyone out around the community, we can uplift each other. I mean, you know, if someone who wasn't doing well lived next to me, I mean, when they do, I help them, I want to, and then they can help me with other stuff, because I don't know how to move a mic stand, and I can't lift big boxes. We're all supposed to help each other. So we need to spread everyone around in the community. So any new development comes in order to have a healthy community, you have to put in micro-housing, you have to put in all kinds of different strata of housing. People who are on SSI make $750 a month. Many of them are struggling with health and mental health issues. They cannot. They don't want to live with other people, but they have to. They're forced to rent a room for $300 or $400 in a rooming house, and they've got no money left over. I mean, we have to take care of our most vulnerable members. I mean, I think it was Pope John Paul II that said that a society will be judged based on how well it takes care of its most vulnerable members. Please, let's take care of everyone equally here. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's the last person I want to make note just because more people came in. Mr. Tucson, you're up next.